Welcome to the third video in the 6-part series to show you how to make Toby Lischko's Civil War sampler quilt that you see behind me. Our first two videos, which I've already done, are for the January-February issue of Fons and Porter's Love of Quilting, and it shows you how to make the first 6 blocks. In this video, which is the third video, and the next video, which is the fourth, we're going to be making 5 more blocks. Well, I'm going to be giving you some tips, really, and some different ways to do things. In this video, we'll be making the Peace Star block, the Illinois block, and the capital T block. These two videos go along with the sampler instructions in the March-April issue of Fons and Porter's Love of Quilting. To get any of those issues or to get a kit for the quilt while supplies last, go to fonsandporter.com. There are lots of ways to find it, but probably the easiest way is to click on magazines and look for those issues, January, February 2011, March, April 2011, and then the final installments for the how-tos will be in the May, June issues of the magazine. So in this video we're going to learn how to make flying geese. We hadn't made any in any of the previous blocks, and also I'm going to show you a little tip on trimming little dog ears before you sew. Well, you're kind of preventing them. A lot of these blocks are repetitive, so I'm giving you some other ideas and little tips as we go along. So let's get started on the flying geese. I've followed the instructions and I've cut my rectangles and my squares for my flying geese. You'll need 1 rectangle and 2 squares for each of the geese. So let's take it over to the sewing machine and sew the first square onto the rectangle. Okay, so I've just lined up the raw edges of my square onto my rectangle, and what I want to do is sew from here to here. So yes, you could kind of eyeball it and sew it, but you know, these things are they're small and you don't want them to be imprecise. So I have a little ruler and I have this great little chalk pencil. So I'm going to use that in order to mark it. And there I have a line to sew on. Now that I've got my sewing machine turned on, it doesn't matter which foot you have because we're not sewing 1/4 inch right now. So I just have my regular sewing foot on. And now just sew with your regular stitch length. Sew along that line. Take it out of the machine, and you will see that now if you flip this back, you have 1/2 of your flying goose. But the problem is we have some extra fabric here, so we've got to get rid of that. So here I've just laid this down on my cutting mat, and I've got a little ruler, which is nice. It comes in nice and handy. You're not wielding something big. And I'm just going to use my 1/4 inch mark to cut off the extra triangles and leave a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You could do this with your scissors, but you know, it's just nice and neat this way. Rotary cutters are the most wonderful thing. So now I'm just going to press that, and then I'm ready to put on my other piece. Now, of course, in real life you'll mark these all at once, not as you go, as I am here, and then you'll just have them already in a stack to sew on. So now I'm going to sew this one, again corner to corner. I've marked it, and I'm going to just stitch along my marked line. Easy as can be. All you got to be able to do is sew in a straight line. And then here, whoops, here is that one. And it opens up, and see how you get this perfect point, and you should have a 1/4 inch right there because your next seam is going to go along there. So this is correct, and this looks correct. So now all I have to do is once again trim here, press open, and I will have 1 flying gooselet made. So here's my finished flying gooselet all ready to sew into whatever I'm going to do in my design. And in this quilt, and specifically these blocks we're working on this month, there are many ways in which the flying goose is used. But what I wanted to show you was, you notice when I pressed to begin with, I pressed this way instead of to the dark, which is our normal routine, and the dark just happens to have started as a rectangle. I pressed out this way. And then, so then when I added the other one, I pressed out that way. And this is just going to lay better this way in this block in particular, because just think, if you had these seam allowances the other way, there'd be a lot of bulk right in here. So this is a good, for instance, of when pressing, you press for the project and for the particular block that you're making and what's going on with the seams there. You know, I like to get my quilts done as quickly as possible, maybe more so than the next guy because I always have deadlines. But neatness really counts. It really matters in the finished product. And so one of the things to take care of, as I've mentioned before, is these little dog ears, because they get in the way of things and cause bumps and get in the way of your sewing. So that's something you always want to do, whether you use your handy dandy rotor cutter or you use your scissors. You want to get rid of those dog ears. But did you know that there is a way to get rid of those dog ears before you even sew them? And it also helps you to line up your triangles when you're sewing them together. Let me show you. I have two tools to show you. The first one is by Fons and Porter. It's called the triangle trimmer. It comes in a package that looks like this, and there's one for quarter square triangles and this one's for half square triangles. And since I'm making half square triangles, that's the one I'm going to use. Now, so I said I'm going to get rid of the dog ears preventatively. Well, that's exactly what this tool does. All you do is line up, and this one just about happens to match exactly the size of a triangle, but you match up your raw edges along both of these edges, and then that leaves your little point, which you then trim off. And you do the same thing on the other end, and then you have your half square triangle ready to be sewn to the other to make a square. Now in this yellow one, I'm going to show you how to use the prep tool. And this tool is made by Guidelines for Quilting. My friend Tom Brady from the from the New England Patriots. John Brady and his wife Ritzko created this and marketed it, and they're quite a team. In fact, you can go to the website and see how to use all their tools. They're amazing. But this is kind of the same principle, only there are many more uses for this tool. These little places here are raised, this gold part, and all you do is you run it along, just sort of pull it down, and it will stop on the fabric, these two pieces, exactly holding the point right where you need to cut. And so you can do then it flips over, so then you can do the other one the same way. And then as you'll see, these two guys are ready to be sewn together. We already have those blunt edges, and actually I had already marked that stitching line because I goofed and did it in blue, so I retaped, and that stitching line goes exactly from that corner to that corner, so that proves that both of these tools are absolutely perfect for this. Now you've completed 9 of the blocks for your quilt. Look for the next video, which is video number 4 of the series, to do the 2 other blocks for this month. And then you'll be ready for the March-April issue of Fons and Porter's Love of Quilting to finish.